My name is Shannon, and I was the child whom all the parents treated like I was made of gold. When I was a child, my mother died of an allergic reaction. She had no idea there were peanuts in her soup and was home alone when she ate it. Dad found her after he came home from work. She was on the dining room floor and could not be saved. A year later, my dad was the manager of a warehouse. He had a freak accident involving a crane. My mom's parents took me in at his death, and the preferential treatment started then. Mom had 3 brothers and a sister. Uncles Les, Matt and Harry and Aunt Penny were at their parents' home every other weekend to coddle me, and on the others Dad's sister and mother had that privilege. All my cousins were basically ignored, and they used me to get what they wanted. If I decided I wanted whatever they asked for, I'd take it for myself. My cousin Rona's makeup kit and her brother Jesse's iPhone come to mind. That happened when I was 13. Christmas was extra good to me that year. All the grandparents, aunts and uncles pooled their resources, and I had an awesome prom, senior trip and graduation when I left high school. I demanded that we all go to Disney over the summer before I shuffled off to college. I had to wait until August so the cousins could find jobs and contribute their earnings, but we finally went, all 22 of us. Thanks to the insurance left by Mom and Dad, I didn't have to work like the cousins to afford tuition. I had almost $500,000 total, and I sneered at all those working stiffs when they came home for holidays all tired and whining about how broke they all were. During my junior break, all 11 of those fools cornered me begging for at least $1,000 each to help them. My parents are still helping you, and you have so much money that you haven't even touched. I could use the help for my books. Another whined, not to mention lab fees. I'm already behind and I'll need more. When I'm an intern next year, I won't have time for a job, Lindy. The one at the same college as me declared. I mean, the least you could do is tell the parents that you no longer need their help so they'll have more to spread to all of us. I scoffed at Penny. Maybe if you guys tried becoming something else you wouldn't need so much money. I scoffed at all of them, flipped my hair and left them in my dust in that basement. I had my money earmarked for a house as soon as I graduated. Then I'd need monthly payments, insurance, furnishings, and a maid. No way was I ever washing a dish again, even after I took a year off to figure out what to do with my history degree. Of the 11 cousins, 3 of the grandchildren were becoming doctors, 1 a lawyer, another was pursuing journalism, 2 wanted to be professors in English and calculus, and the others were planning to do other things in education like teaching children. And all wanted my help with their incidentals, toiletries, and other crazy crap like food. I mean, I bought Mari some body wash, toothpaste, and dental wax in my freshman year, so what more did she want from me? Sometimes I wondered if they truly understood how much harder my life had become, or if they just saw me as a walking wallet. The guilt never really stuck, not with all the freedom I enjoyed. I spent weekends shopping, splurging on little luxuries, and planning my next big move while my cousins chased scholarships and counted pennies. Their desperation only made me feel more justified in keeping what was mine. I mean, they never seemed to recall the effort it took to find them Christmas and birthday gifts, while they always gave me a bottle of perfume. Every birthday and Christmas I believe they went in on a gift basket and separated the items, then each would give me something from it. I didn't enjoy most of the scents and usually gave them away to my dorm mates. They all seemed like the stuff. I preferred high-end fragrances. I can't recall how many of Tom Ford's fucking Fabulous I've gone through over my college career. And Carolina Herrera's Good Girl scents. I watched the cousins grow more desperate each semester, their requests morphing from polite hints to outright pleas again. They'd send texts late at night. Sometimes long rambling explanations about how they barely scraped by, sometimes just a single emoji, a crying face, $signs, or a stack of dollar bills. The more they begged, the more I hardened. I'd reply with a thumbs up or a laughing face, never offering more than a token gesture like toiletries. They could have worked harder, I reasoned. They could have planned better, saved more. Meanwhile, my Pinterest boards overflowed with visions of a future home. Walk-in closets, marble countertops, a backyard with a pool, and the kind of garden that looked effortless but cost a fortune to maintain. I dreamed of travel too. Paris, Tokyo, Barcelona. There wasn't much that seemed beyond my reach, and I relished the freedom. My cousins struggled for textbooks and bus fare, but I browsed catalogs for designer luggage to use when I finished my education. Several countries were going to see me before I settled down and found my husband. And if I played my cards right, I'd already have a home before I married, and it would be decorated the way I wanted with no one's input. Sometimes amidst all the indulgence I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror, and wondered if any of it would last. But I always shook off the thought. There was power in holding the purse strings, in being the one others envied and resented in equal measure. Their disappointment was just background noise. I was too busy planning my life. But late at night when everything was quiet except for the hum of the city beyond my apartment window, a sliver of doubt sometimes crept in. Was I really building something meaningful or just stacking up possessions and moments that looked good in photos? I'd scroll through my cousin's social media posts, study groups in cluttered dorm scholarships, one laughter despite the struggle, and feel an unfamiliar twist in my chest. Still I'd lock my phone, fluff my pillows, and remind myself that comfort was my reward for planning my future. Maybe someday I'd do more for them, I'd think. But not today. Today was for me and my dreams, and everything else could wait just a little bit longer. They had parents, and as soon as I finished college I'd inform my aunts, uncles, and grandparents that their help would no longer be needed. 1 year after graduation my grandparents expressed that they were moving in with their oldest son and his wife Harry and Lucy, who were empty nesters. They owned a 5-bedroom Tudor home and offered it to me. All I'd need to do after paying them less than a quarter of the money I now had, which after interest was a little over $700,000, was furnish it to my liking and update the kitchen and bathrooms. Luckily one of my uncles was a contractor and he volunteered to do it for free after he made sure his parents were settled in his brother's home. I decided I wanted to take a trip to Greece. I'd already been to England, Ireland, Italy, Thailand, China, Japan, and Sweden, so Greece would be perfect, I thought. I took off after my uncle and I synced on what I wanted done to the kitchen, 2.5 baths, bedrooms, and basement. It was going to take him 6 weeks to complete, so I decided that's how long I'd be gone. When I returned I had spent upwards of $300,000 of my money and decided I needed to find work. That took a month, and when I did it was as a high school history teacher, and they also asked if I would start or join a club. I tried to keep my face neutral, but I think it showed that I was not for that idea. In the end I decided not to accept the job. Next I reached out to a private school. They paid better and the clubs already had leaders, so all I'd have to do is tell the students what wars happened when and who was president the year I was born. Day 1 I met a man who instantly ticked me off. He was 20 pounds overweight, balding, and his right cheek had a scar on it that did not heal correctly. I avoided him at all costs, which was hard because he was the head chef at the school. Each day he and his team started at 5 a.m. and served breakfast at 7. Lunch was at 11 for some students and noon for others. By 2 he was gone for the day. On the day we met, David Weston bumped into me and spilled a pitcher of orange juice on my Louboutin peep-toe pumps and shrugged. "Didn't see you," there was all he said, gesturing to someone. "What are you, 3 feet tall?" I snatched a cloth napkin from the table near me and took off my shoes. 5'5", I'll have you know. Maybe if you weren't jabbering with someone while walking you could have seen me. "It's Monday morning, miss." "Miss?" Dabbing at the juice on my suede pump I snapped, "Shannon Ware." I heard a scoff. "Shannon? What kind of name is that?" I glared at him. The guy had to be 6 feet tall. My paternal grandmother's. And I'm proud of it. "But please call me Ms. Ware." "David Weston." "Call me whatever, Ms. Ware. I don't give a shit." I felt like steam was escaping my ears. "And I did you a favor. Don't even try telling me that your feet don't hurt at the end of the day in those things." He looked me up and down. "And maybe you should reconsider your wardrobe. You look like you're going to a business meeting, then to a club instead of a classroom to teach children." He walked away smirking. I glared at him, not believing that he didn't even offer to clean or replace my shoes. I forgot all about my breakfast and went to the gym, where I washed my feet and asked Mrs. Gaines for a pair of sneakers. Our school sold them with the school's emblem and socks. I walked through the halls holding the box of the new shoes in one hand and the ruined pumps in the other, fuming and barefoot. I didn't want to admit it, but my feet did feel better at the end of the day. I still felt stupid in my brown tank dress, black blazer, and those gray shoes, and most of the day I stared at my black pumps under my desk. By lunchtime the staff room had already caught wind of my shoe debacle. A couple of the other teachers gave me sympathetic glances while Ms. Peretti, the art teacher, grinned knowingly and lifted her own foot to show off a pair of neon pink sneakers. "Welcome to the club," she whispered conspiratorially. I managed a small smile, appreciating the gesture, even if my pride still stung. As the afternoon classes rolled on, the kids hardly noticed my new footwear, but I couldn't help feeling strangely exposed. Every time I heard footsteps in the hallway, I braced myself for another encounter with David Weston. But he didn't appear. Instead, I found myself wondering if maybe, just maybe, he had been a little bit right about the shoes. Not that I'd ever admit it out loud. By the time the dismissal bell rang, I was a tangle of exhaustion and indignation. The sneakers on my feet felt foreign, a white flag waving at my own stubborn vanity. I lingered at my desk, pretending to grade papers but really just replaying the morning's disaster. Each time I relived the sloshing juice, David's infuriating smirk, and the indignity of walking the halls shoeless, my cheeks burned anew. Outside my classroom window, the late afternoon sun slanted across the playground. I could hear the echo of laughter. Students playing tag, their voices rising and falling like a tide. I envied their freedom, their utter lack of self-consciousness. When had I become so careful with my image, so concerned about appearances? I glanced down at the ruined pumps shoved under my desk and sighed. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. I looked up to see Ms. Peretti, her ever-present paint-splattered apron replaced with a fuzzy green cardigan. She leaned against the doorframe, arms folded, sneakers neon and unapologetic. "Rough day?" she asked, her eyes gentle. I tried to muster a smile. "You could say that. I'm thinking of turning in my pumps for good." She let out a soft laugh. "That's what the club is for." She moved closer, lowering her voice. "Don't let David get to you. He's got opinions about everyone. Last month he told me my earrings were too loud for a school setting. I wore 3 pairs the next day." Her solidarity warmed me, and I found myself laughing despite the day. Maybe I'll wear my blazers with these sneakers and really give him something to talk about. Now that's the spirit. Besides, the kids don't care what shoes you wear. They care if you listen. And you, Ms. Ware, are a great listener. With a reassuring squeeze on my shoulder, she drifted away, leaving the scent of turpentine and a little hope in her wake. I packed up my bag, slipping the pumps inside. Every step in those sneakers felt lighter, a tiny rebellion against my own self-imposed rules. I paused in the hallway, watching David down the corridor talking to Coach Phillips. He caught my eye, and for a split second his expression softened, almost as if he might apologize. But then he just smirked, turned away, and disappeared through the gym doors. Let him keep his opinions, I thought, the sting fading. I've survived worse than spilled juice and careless words. On my way out, I passed by a group of students huddled on the steps. "Ms. Ware." One called "cool shoes." The others giggled, some spinning to show off their own footwear. I grinned, suddenly grateful for the chance to connect. It was, after all, just a pair of shoes. Driving home, I let the events of the day settle. The urge to call my grandmother bubbled up, a longing for her voice, her wisdom. She always told me that pride was best left at the door, right next to muddy shoes. I could almost hear her laughter, rich and unbothered by anyone else's opinions. That night, as I set my pumps in the closet and lined up the new sneakers next to them, I made a mental note. Tomorrow I'd choose comfort, not just for my feet but for myself. And if David Weston had anything to say about it, well, maybe I'd finally be ready with a comeback. Or maybe, like Ms. Peretti, I'd just let my shoes do the talking. The tension between David and me wasn't anything new. Our conversations always seemed to veer into disagreements. He'd argue about classroom management, insisting my approach was too lenient, and I'd push back, defending my methods mainly by showing him my students' grades. Sometimes our debates would linger in the staff room long after the final bell, neither of us willing to concede. After spring break, I barely had time to toss my keys on my desk before I heard heels clicking down the hallway. A rhythm too familiar to be anyone but Mari. She appeared in the doorway, clutching her no-name bag like a lifeline, her eyes darting around to make sure we were alone. "Shannon, can we talk? Just for a minute?" she whispered urgently. I gestured her inside, and her perfume overwhelmed me. She didn't waste time. "I need $10,000. Just a loan until things turn around," she said, her voice wavering between desperation and entitlement. "I should be able to pay you back by the end of the year. I may have a new job starting after my honeymoon in June, and the sign-on bonus will be delivered the day I sign the contract. You haven't even started a new job, and you're here at mine begging for money." I snorted. "Again. I'm not begging," my cousin insisted. "It's a loan." Something in me hardened. I crossed my arms, the sting of old grudges flaring. I was so tired of these people coming straight to me for money. "No," I replied, the words colder than intended. She tried to plead, but I shook my head, tone clipped and final. "Not happening, Mari. I can't help you." The hurt in her eyes flashed briefly before she gathered herself. You just won't," Mari said, and closed the door, her composure wavering. "I really need help, Shannon. I've scraped together all I could for the down payment. If I don't come up with the rest, we'll lose the house. My fiancé's family is already covering the wedding, but I want to buy my own gown, and that alone is $3,000. Her voice pitched with urgency, her eyes shining with a mix of hope and anxiety. "No, you want me to buy your gown?" I scoffed. $3,000? For a wedding dress? Mari, that's barely a down payment on a halfway decent one. What's it made of? Recycled fast food uniforms. I grinned, shaking my head. Come on, at least splurge and get something that'll make his family gasp. I chose a dress that felt good on me and I love it. They won't alter it until I pay for it and the alteration fee, and soon there won't be enough time for them to finish it for my wedding day. Mari looked away and let out a breath. Shannon. Can you help me out and make this dream of mine come true? The gravity in her voice pinned me in place. The Mari I knew rarely let her guard down like this, but still, I couldn't do it. Damn it, Mari, $10,000 it's a lot of money. I have my own bills and... His shaky voice cut me off. I know, Shannon. I wouldn't ask if I had access to that kind of money or if there were anywhere else to turn. She wiped at her eyes trying to muster the old bravado, but her hands were trembling. Still, I felt this was not something I should be helping her with. What about your parents? Uncle Matt and Aunt Gigi have to have more than that hiding somewhere. They don't, Mari sighed. Mom and Dad have to pay for Hal's rehab. They were going to give it to me, but Hal's accident. My brother is a paraplegic now. I know, I sighed in aggravation. They hinted to me about the costs, but I wasn't helping with that either. He's not my son and his fiancée had a job. She can pay for that and then your parents can give you that money, so you're welcome. Lacey is helping, but that's hundreds of thousands of dollars and insurance won't cover all of it. Mari snatched open the door and snapped, how did you become such a cold, unfeeling being, Shannon? Why can't you ever help anyone, especially after everyone pulled together to pay for your shit over the years? I looked at her coldly. Did I ever ask them to help? The Wares were supposed to ignore their oldest daughter's child, especially after what your father... She shook her head. The least you could have done was offer to pay back some of the money spent on your education. How do you live with yourself, Shannon? Your family damn near went broke for your care and it was needed, I know, but when you came into $750,000, how do you sleep well without offering something to those who helped you survive? I rolled my eyes. Mari continued, you left college without any student loans. You made a killing by buying Grams and Gramps' home, and Uncle Les charged nothing but what was needed for materials. You haven't invited anyone over for at least a cup of coffee, knowing that house was where we all gathered for every holiday and celebration, and now you can't help with Gram's medications or my gown. Seriously, why are you so cold? I moved my hands to my hips and leaned close. Because I can be. I have the money to back me up. I don't need to go to my cousin's job and ask them for a damn thing, including a cheap wedding dress. Can you at least help with Gram's meds? Do you know how much her co-payments are every month? I snorted. I gave them $125,000 for that house. If it's gone already, it's not my fault that they can't budget better. Wow. After they gave you a roof over your head and made sure your belly stayed full and your body was warm, this is what you think? I smirked. You can go now, and if you ever need to talk to me again, don't bring it here. Stop abusing the fact that your boyfriend is the principal. Fiancé, she shouted, storming down the hall. And by the way, their money went toward Hal's care. I dropped at my desk, wondering why I came back to this town after college. If I'd moved to another state, this mess wouldn't be happening. I picked up my tablet to acquaint myself with the day's curriculum and wondered if I'd have time to trade in my car over the weekend after going to the hair salon and the nail shop. I planned to get extensions and color, and I wanted to change my nails. They were only a week old, but I was ready for a change. And while I was in the city, I wanted to buy the Asia 95s from Jimmy Choo. Not those cheap plan ones, but the ivories embedded with crystals. $2,995 before tax. I'd buy the shoes and save them for my wedding. Maybe. I giggled thinking about trying them on when a cleared throat made me look up. Do you get some kind of sick thrill when you treat your family like crap? I glared at David Weston and snarled. Excuse me? Family is everything, he insisted. If anyone, blood or not, needs your help, give it to them. This is not your business, I shouted. He snorted. It's not my fault that you had that conversation with the door wide open. Even so, Weston, you don't need to comment. He moved further inside and snapped, your cousin left here in tears because she needs help with a day that nothing will compare to until she has children, and you can't help her by loaning her the money needed for her dress and the rest of the down payment for the home that she and her husband will raise those kids in? I set my jaw and stared at him, stung by the implication that I was heartless. It's not that simple. You don't know everything that's going on. My voice trembled with frustration, but I refused to let him crawl under my skin. How could I convey how frustrated I was at always being asked to give up my money? I do it once, it will never stop. David's eyes softened for a moment, but the stubborn set of his shoulders didn't budge. Maybe not, he said. But I know what's right. Sometimes helping means putting someone's needs before your own plans. Help, I screeched. Damn it, she wants to buy a dress she knows she can't afford. It is not my responsibility to help with that loan or not. And your grandmother's medicine? I waved him off. There are 23 of us. Why am I the one who always has to step up with my debit card? I'm not the only one who is gainfully employed. He asked. There has to be a reason where. Why do they come to you? I informed. Because my parents' estate kicked in once I got my degree and now everyone wants a piece of it and has since I got some for college. I need my money, damn it. No one's going to take care of me the way I want to be cared for, so that means I spend mine on me. David insisted. Meanwhile, your grandmother needs insulin and is worried about how to pay for it, and your cousin needs a roof over her head and a gown for her big day, yet you won't help. I'm glad we're not friends because shit happens, and if you can't rely on family and friends, then who? He let the words hang in the air, heavy and unyielding, before leaving me alone with my tangled thoughts and the echo of his challenge. I clenched my fists, watching the door swing shut behind him. The room felt colder, but my mind churned, replaying his words over and over. A wave of exhaustion washed over me, but I knew I couldn't ignore this any longer. Maybe it was time to have an honest conversation with my cousin, one where I explained the whole truth behind my hesitation. The weight in my chest pressed tighter as I reached for my phone, uncertainty knotting my stomach, and I abandoned the task. I stopped for a pasta dish after work, and while I ate, David Weston's words entered my thoughts. I am selfish, and I needed to be, simply because I had no one to fall back on in the long run. I had no parents, my grandparents were aging, my aunts and uncles had their own things to deal with, and my cousins were forging out on their own. I didn't even have siblings to call on, and all the cousins had several. Who could I ever lean on? If I married, I didn't want to rely on my husband for anything but love. I pushed around my garlic noodles and sighed. I guess I could buy Graham's meds. I picked up my cell and called her pharmacy. I was completely surprised when they informed me that she had enough of everything to last her 6 months. Someone came in and paid with cash. We delivered it all around 4. I thanked her and hung up, wondering who helped. When I arrived at work the next morning, I encountered Mari and her fiancé, Principal Drew Edwards, in the parking lot, and they looked like they were saying goodbye for the day happily. I walked over to them. Hi guys, I said. Listen, Mari, I changed my mind. I'll loan you the money. Drew frowned. What money? Mari smiled. It's nothing, babe. I don't need it anymore. Oh, okay, he said, nodding. Well, I'd better go in. See you at 6, my love. He kissed her, nodded to me, and rushed into the school. Mari turned to me. Why did you lie to him? I asked. Mari absolutely beamed. I didn't, Shannon. Someone else loaned me the money and told me to consider it a wedding gift. So I'm going to go pay for my dress, make the last of the down payment on the house, and I'll have some money left over to buy things for my honeymoon. I plan to do that on Saturday. Cassie is coming to town to shop with me. Oh, that sounds like fun. Mind if I tag along? Actually, I do. Your behavior yesterday hit the last nerve I have, so I think it's best that. I've decided that I don't want you as a bridesmaid. My heart broke. Okay, I nodded. I guess that it'll be good to be in the audience. She shook her head. Nope, not even that, Shannon. It would be best all around if you made other plans for May 20th. Maybe I'll see you when we return in time for the 4th. Then again, maybe we shouldn't bother with seeing one another anymore since we're such a burden on you. I nodded and whimpered okay. I had nothing more to say. Mari nodded and got in her vehicle. I watched her drive away and felt so much pain that I almost tripped over nothing when I finally started to move toward the entrance of the school. I went straight to the bathroom and sobbed. I really wanted to be at her wedding. I finally composed myself and shook my head at my red blotchy face and pink eyes. And my face was now devoid of makeup. I splashed cold water on my cheeks and went to my classroom. God, you look awful. I nodded. Then I look how I feel, Ms. Peretti. She felt my forehead with a frown. Are you coming down with something? No, really, I'll be fine soon. I should go. There's a quiz today and I need to prep for it. I kept my head down and functioned on autopilot that day. I was beyond grateful that it was Friday. I decided to faceplank my bed and eat all the ice cream I could have delivered. I did that every day I didn't have to work, and on the last day of school I skipped it. I could no longer get out of bed, and that's not because I gained 10 or 15 pounds. Well, it was part of the problem. The day of the wedding, Mari's sister Cassie texted to check on me. She had been doing that since she discovered I was uninvited, and I usually texted the same thing. That I was fine and wished everyone luck on the big day. I put on a pair of jeans and a hoodie and made my way to the venue. She didn't have to see me, I decided. I stayed in the back of the church, and once they kissed at the end of the ceremony I applauded with the others and left in tears. I sat in my car and watched them take a few photos in the church's garden. I ducked down when the limo arrived, and when it drove off with a caravan behind it I covered my eyes and cried harder. I wanted to eat the meal they chose and some wedding cake with my family. Someone opened the passenger door and slid into my SUV. I startled and stared at David Weston, who gave me tissues. "Here to gloat?" I asked, then blew my nose. He shook his head. "I think you're suffering enough as it is. Want to talk about it? Don't you have to go to the reception now?" "I'm supposed to, but I spotted you. So talk." After a sigh and a deep breath I explained my parents' early deaths, living with my grandparents and them spoiling me along with mom's siblings. I mentioned my inheritance and how I bought my grandparents' home and fixed it up and how that took me 2 years to complete. I mentioned all my travels and how I felt replete, but someday I may want to travel again and I wanted to make sure I had enough money to live off of when or if I did it. David said nothing, but he did nod several times. When I finished he said, "You were spoiled because they felt sorry for you." I never thought about it that way. I guess that's exactly what happened. "So now what are you going to do about it?" "What can I do? Apologize?" I stared at him. "Apologize?" "Absolutely," he said. "You should let Mari know that you were wrong for the way you treated her when she needed you." Maybe I sighed. "But she doesn't care." "Doesn't care?" "Mari is beyond pissed with me, and she showed it when she uninvited me to her festivities. The last thing she wants is for me to show up or call her to say anything." A tear rolled as I said, "She no longer cares about me, David." He squeezed my hand. "I guarantee she does, Shannon. She was just hurt, and I think she missed you today. Drew mentioned that she'd been holding her phone for weeks hoping you'd call, but you never did." "She could have called me," I mumbled. "But you were the one who caused harm." I nodded, hating that he was right. "I did. So text her. She's probably occupied, so later when she's had a moment she'll read your text and respond." He was right again. I picked up my cell and sighed at it. I unlocked it and attempted to put my feelings into words. After several attempts I passed it to David. He silently read my words and chuckled. "You're good at apologizing, Shannon." I nodded. "Send it, please." I watched his thumb move and blew out a strong breath. "Thank you," I whispered. "No problem. Are you going to be okay while you wait?" "I think so, but..." The sound of a message alert stopped me. I read the text, surprised that Mari answered so quickly. "Thank you for the apology and I unconditionally accept. I'm glad you were able to see the ceremony from the back of St. Mary's. I'll send you a slice of cake before we leave tonight. I love you, cousin." "I love you too," I sent back. I wiped my eyes and smiled at David. "Would you be willing to help me with something?" "Well, several things." He held my hand again. "Sure. Where do we start?"
On Labor Day, Uncle Matt, Mari's father, was working the grill, and I had spent days prepping and making side dishes, snacks, desserts, and drinks. I also invited my paternal grandmother and aunt, and her family. I looked forward to seeing all of them. I was pouring my grandmother a glass of unsweetened tea when Cassie called. "Shannon, I just love that dress. Where did you find it? And does it come in blue?" I laughed, posing. "I found it in a consignment shop last week and thought it would be perfect for today." "Oh, it is Grandma," Shannon cooed. "Oh, I remember when I had the body to wear strapless sundresses I could never pull off that shade of yellow, but it's working on your skin." I beamed. "Thank you, Grammy." "I agree," my cousin Lindy said, "but isn't it a little dressy for a barbecue, isn't it?" Lita, another cousin, said. "I agree, Shannon. I'd be so afraid to wear it out of fear of staining it." We laughed. I said, "Uncle Matt promised not to put a lot of sauce on my ribs, so I should be fine." We laughed again. I spent the last several weeks making amends with my relatives. Then I gave them $10,000 each and paid half of Hal's rehab facility bill, who was sitting in a motorized wheelchair next to his fiancée and smiling my way. I thought I was going to cry when my savings dwindled, but I had learned over the weeks to show appreciation, and I finally realized I was of all of them and needed to change the way I thought, acted, and spoke. I needed my family, and that's why I decided to open my home. More, I squealed, pulling Gramps from his seat. "I'm getting married today, and I want you to walk me down the aisle." "Well, down the yard?" I pointed to the patio that was decorated with white and blue balloon arches. Everyone stayed quiet. Suddenly all began speaking with questions, disbelief, and protests. "He's a good man," I insisted, "and he's not. After anything that I'm not willing to give, he loves me." Aunt Leanna, Dad's sister, asked, "Well, it sounds like your mind is made up, but are you sure?" I smoothly insisted please be happy. For me, if this doesn't work out, I'll hire Jesse to represent me in the divorce, but know that I really want this union to last, and so does he. Graham sighed. You haven't said that you love him, my dear. I squatted in front of her and held her hands. I love him almost as much as I love you, Grams. It's strong, and I think it will be to my last breath. Grams held my cheek. All right, dear girl. One question, Uncle Harry said. Did you take care of a prenup signed 3 days ago? I assured. Gramps said I'd like to meet him first. Gramps, Carla called. You know it's bad luck for the groom to see the bride before the ceremony. Go inside, Grams ordered. I giggled, kissed her cheek, and ran into the kitchen. I sent my fiancé a text telling him it was safe to join the others. I watched him open the gate and walk in, followed by 11 others. I quickly deduced it was his parents and other family members. My groom was wearing dark blue slacks, a yellow and blue striped button-down shirt, and a smile that could light up the sky. I informed him that I didn't want to wear a white dress and had chosen a yellow one, and I couldn't believe he tried to match me. I started falling for David Weston 10 days after Mari's wedding when he revealed that he paid for Graham's medicine and gave Mari $10,000. I did it because both instances were warranted, and I had a hell of a time finding them a gift. I asked, and Graham's she needed it, was all he said. I looked away, hoping he wasn't going to be broke for his efforts. My friend owns a pharmacy, David explained. He gave them to me for cost after I told him about Mrs. Ware. Even if he hadn't helped, I have investments that pay me fairly well. It wasn't a problem to help your grandmother and cousin who is marrying my best bud since college. When David proposed, I knew I needed him, and quickly accepted, and we decided that we didn't want to wait long to be married. So when Mari texted that she and Drew were back, David and I went to their home and told them our plans. They were happy for us and agreed Labor Day would be the perfect day to marry since all our close relatives would be there anyway, and both insisted they wouldn't mind being the matron of honor and best man. Everyone turned when David and his family entered the yard, and most screamed in excitement when they realized he was my groom. I smiled when he asked my grandfather for my hand. I don't know what Gramps said, but David Weston cringed for a moment, then nodded after they shook hands, and I beamed when David moved to the patio with Drew, and Gramps opened the screen door. Let's get you married, dear, he called. I've threatened David. He acknowledged it and agreed. I stepped outside again, heart thumping with anticipation and joy. Cassie pressed a bouquet of wildflowers into my hands, and our guests wiped away happy tears or whispered excitedly about the ceremony to come. I smiled at David, and he returned it, holding Gramps' arm. The scent of freshly cut grass mingled with the faint aroma of blooming roses as we walked slowly toward the patio, my nerves settling with each step we made behind Mari. David's hand encased mine when I reached him. It wasn't a grand affair, but it was perfect, intimate, honest, and filled with the people who mattered most. Our families clustered close, their faces bright with pride and love as the gentle wind whispered through the garden like a blessing. I took a deep breath, letting the serenity of the garden settle my heart, and as David stood together beneath the soft sunlight, I knew we were exactly where we were meant to be. As we stood side by side, my neighbor, an ordained minister who had known me before I was born, cleared his throat and began the ceremony with heartfelt words about family and commitment. The breeze carried the sound of laughter and soft music from the speakers, wrapping us in warmth and promise. When it came time to exchange vows, David squeezed my hand, his gaze steady and full of emotion. I recited the words I had written, promising to cherish him through every season, every trial, every triumph. He spoke his vows in turn, voice trembling slightly, and tears glistened in our eyes as we both said I do. Our families cheered, and I knew that this was the beginning of everything we'd hoped for. As David and I shared a gentle kiss, the garden erupted into applause, laughter ringing out beneath the afternoon sun. The moment felt timeless, a memory I knew would live in my heart forever. After the introductions, congratulations, and well wishes, my husband and I walked hand in hand toward the table where Grams had placed her legendary lemon cake, which I specifically asked for, and everyone found their seats. Stories were shared, hugs exchanged, and the air was filled with music and joy. David squeezed my hand, and I realized that this simple, beautiful day was exactly what we had dreamed of. Our future stretched out before us, bright and full of promise, and I couldn't wait to see where love would lead us next. When David went to get us more of the delicious food I went for tea, I stood behind my dad's sister, who said she was certainly beautiful, and so was today. Does she know the truth yet? Graham's my mom's mother's side, hard no, and I don't think she should ever know. Aunt Penny, mom's sister, who was only a year younger than my mother, snarled, yes, she should, mama. She has a right to know exactly what that man did to her mother. She's 26 now. Why are we still hiding the truth from her? Ollie Janine Colware would want her told. They were obviously talking about me. I moved forward and loudly demanded, what should I know? I focused on Graham's told me. What? All three women stared at me with wide eyes, and I instantly knew this was not going to be good.